finish up this conservative promise. And then I'm like, we should watch this full interview with Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump because it's batshit crazy. Thank you, Sher Marie. Let me see if it's on YouTube. You know, that's where she's been regulated to. She's no longer credible enough to be on major television. Hey, Tracy. Uh, Megyn Kelly interview. Good morning, YouTube. So YouTube is here, TikTok is here. It's not on YouTube. Where is she? On Daily Caller now? Where is she? Oh, I found it. Let me add it. Good morning, everybody. I'm doing well on this Friday. Ooh, watching all the way from South Africa. Hey, South Africa. Hey, Worried Mama. Sheila Davidson. She is not a good interviewer. I don't know if I've watched any, interviews that specifically said interview by Megyn Kelly. I remember when he he dragged her and she's still being nice and respectful and I wouldn't give Donald Trump the time of day. But when you're desperate for the attention, you don't mind lowering your self-respect to get that attention. Good morning, Decatur, where it's greater. We're gonna go through promise number 2. Yesterday we went through promise number 1. Let me find it. Promise number 1 was restore. Let me turn this down. Promise number 1 was to restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. We went through that and I broke down my thoughts on some of the things that was said in that promise. When they say restore the American family and make that the centerpiece of America, they're not talking about us. They solely talking about white people. Okay? They're not talking about making the black family the centerpiece of America. Okay? We all in agreement? Yeah, they're not talking about the black family. They don't give two ish about the black family, okay? Yes, we're talking about Project 2025. Project 2025 consists of the conservative promise. This is what it looks like. Mandate for leadership, the conservative promise, Project 2025, and it's supposed to be it's their transition for the president, the Republican president that they anticipate is coming into office, okay? And that president is Donald Trump. So he is supposed to implement all of this which is in this book. This is supposed to be a handbook of policy regulations for the next president. They're assuming it's going to be Donald Trump, but this is for whatever Republican that they assume will be heading into office in 2025. I don't even know why I made this coffee, because yesterday I was like, I don't like hot coffee anymore. Hey, Jay Jacobson. I guess we're going to deal with it today. Pretty Mrs. G, yes, I have two. One of them is private. That's not the one that I'm working from. That is the backup. The other one is open. The other one has 547,000 followers on it. That's the active one. We had unity in the 70s until they broke us up. And you notice every time that we show unity, there's something that comes along that attempts to break it up. But so the Project 25 consists of these promises, right? The conservative promise. And the first one we went through on yesterday, which was the family. Let me read it again. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. That is their first promise. So they have four separate promises. And then the rest of the handbook is the Heritage Foundation going by department of the federal government. You know, you got the White House, and then you got the Department of Justice, and then you've got education, that type of thing. And then they break it down. They first list out all of the positions within that department. Like for the White House, you got the president, then you got the chief of staff, and then you got the press people, right? So they break it out by position, and then they break out policy that they want to implement for within that department, that division, if you get what I'm saying. So they have all of these policies that they want the president to implement. Then they have these policies. They listed the jobs that are in the Department of Justice, and then they list these policies that need to be implemented for the Department of Justice. Y'all get what I'm saying? I'm just telling you how this book is broken up, right? So to get the gist of where their mindset is, we're going to focus on the Project 25, which is not the Project 25, the conservative promise, because everything else is based on these promises for conservatives that all of this is supposed to provide. And when they're talking about the promise for conservatives, it's strictly for conservatives. It's not for all Americans, right? It's not for all Americans. This, what they have implemented, that they want the president of the United States to implement these policies based on, is strictly for conservatives, religious, white conservatives. I told y'all yesterday that one of their plans is to eliminate all of the employees within the federal government. Their plan is to eliminate 50,000 positions within the federal government. And then those key positions that need to be filled, they're going to fill them with their foot soldiers, those who are loyal to conservative Republican ideology, who will be loyal to Donald Trump or whoever the president is. Loyal as in will do whatever the Republican president says to do. If the Republican president tells you to go out and murder somebody on Fifth Avenue, you're expected to do that. But these positions are for those who follow that ideology, which will be white Christians who are loyal to the Republicans, Donald Trump, you won't find many Black people working these jobs at the federal government. Okay? So, yesterday we did Promise 1. Let's get into Promise 2. Promise 2 is dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. Now, yesterday, when I went through the whole family portion of it, I pointed out contradictions, right? They're giving you this illusion that you're going to be free based on these policies, based on this promise. I pointed out where there's contradictions in that tale that they given. Maybe it's the coffee that I had yesterday that I just wasn't digging. All right. So this is going to be interesting. Now we're getting into how they're going to restructure the government. This is a government takeover, if you ask me. This portion specifically tells me that this is a government takeover. Of course, the surest way to put the federal government back to work for the American people is to reduce its size and scope back to something resembling the original constitutional intent. Original constitutional intent. Go back to 1776. That's what they always refer back to, right? Even Lauren Boebert. Today is our 1776. You hear Marjorie Taylor Greene always throwing out 1776, right? Not right? Not what we have used this Constitution to build. No, we're going back to when white men were superior. Black men were second-class citizens, if not enslaved. Are we clear? Original intent. They made that very clear. Original constitutional intent. Okay. Conservatives desire a smaller government, not for its own, but for the sake of human flourishing. But the Washington establishment doesn't want a constitutionally limited government because it means they lose power and are held more accountable by the people who put them in power. Like restoring popular sovereignty, the task of reattaching the federal government's constitutional and democratic tethers calls to mind Ronald Reagan's observation that there are no easy answers, but there are simple. There are no easy answers, but there are simple answers. In the case of making the federal government smaller, more effective, and accountable, the simple answer is the Constitution itself. The surest proof of this is how strenuously and creatively generations of progressives and many Republican insiders have worked to cut themselves free from the strictures of the 1789 Constitution and subsequent amendments. They don't want those amendments. The original constitutional intent, all of those amendments that were brought forth to, those are the reasons how we got to where we are today. This beautiful, this diverse, this free society. Okay? Consider the federal budget. Under current law, Congress is required to pass a budget and 12 issue specific spending bills comporting with it every single year. The last time Congress did so was in 1996. Congress no longer meaningfully budgets, authorizes, or categorizes spending. Instead, party leaders negotiate one multi-trillion-dollar spending bill several thousand pages long and then vote on it before anyone literally has had a chance to read it. Debate time is restricted. Amendments are prohibited. And all of this is backed up against a midnight deadline when the previous omnibus spending bill will run out and the federal government shuts down. We're going through that process right now, right? When I told you that there are some Republicans in Congress, in state government, that have already implemented policies from this handbook, the MAGA, the ultra MAGA up there in Congress, they're a part of that. This is what they're doing. This is why they don't want to approve the whatever it is that's going on up there now. I believe it's a spending bill or something. We're heading into shutdown, right? So this is what they keep doing. They keep shutting it down. This process is designed to empower 330 million American citizens and their elected representatives, but rather to this process is not designed to empower 330 million American citizens and their elected representatives, but rather to empower the party elites secretly negotiating without any public scrutiny or oversight. Don't Republicans do this too? Aren't they negotiating too? Mm-hmm. So who do you think this is geared towards? Okay. In the end, congressional leaders' behavior and incentives are no different from those of global elites insulating policy decision over the climate, trade, public health, you name it, from the sovereignty of national electorates. Public scrutiny and democratic accountability make life harder for policymakers, so they skirt it. It's not dysfunction, it's corruption. And despite its gaudy price tag, the federal budget is not even close to the worst example of this corruption. That distinction belongs to the administrative state, the dismantling of which must be a top priority for the next conservative president. The term administrative state refers to the policy-making work done by the bureaucracies of all the federal government's departments, agencies, and millions of employees. Under Article 1 of the Constitution, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. This is a federal law. This is federal law is enacted only by elected legislatures in both houses of Congress. That sentence is not right. Moving on. This exclusive authority was part of the framers' doctrine of separated powers. They not only split the federal government's legislative, executive, and judicial powers into different branches. Yes, they do. And they do that for a reason. They also gave each branch checks over the others. Yes, they do, for a specific reason. Under our Constitution, the legislative branch, Congress, is far and away the most powerful and correspondingly the most accountable to the people. In recent decades, members of the House and Senate discovered that if they give away that power to the Article 2 branch of government, they can also deny responsibility for its actions. So today in Washington, most policy is no longer set by Congress at all, but by the administrative state. Given the choice between being powerful but vulnerable or irrelevant but famous, most members of Congress have chosen the latter. Congress passes intentionally vague laws that delegate decision making over a given issue to a federal agency. That agency's bureaucrats, not just unelected but seemingly unfireable, then leap at the chance to fill the vacuum created by Congress preening cowardice. The federal government is growing larger and less constitutionally accountable, even to the president, every year. So it's breaking out these issues. A combination of elected and unelected bureaucrats at the Environmental Protection Agency quietly strangles domestic energy production through difficult to understand rulemaking promises or processes. Bureaucrats at the Department of Homeland Security, following the lead of a feckless administration, order border and immigration enforcement agencies to help migrants criminally enter our country with impunity. So they don't want immigrants coming into this country. So they have a problem with the Department of Homeland Security because the Department of Homeland Security has issued all of these steps for these people to be able to come into this country legally. They can request asylum, right? Or they can take all of these other steps to become a citizen, right? They don't want none of that. They don't want any of these immigrants in this country at all. Bureaucrats at the Department of Education, pay attention, inject racist, anti-American, ahistorical propaganda into America's classrooms. They're not talking about whitewashing Black history. No, they're talking about the teaching of Black history, truthfully, unapologetically. They don't want that. And remember, I told you yesterday that Ron DeSantis, if you pay attention to what it is that he's doing and you can tie it to some of these things that we are talking about in this conservative promise in Project 2025. Ron DeSantis has already started implementing policy from this handbook down in Florida. Okay? So they don't want Black history taught because it shows their barbarism. It shows their butchery of Black people. It shows how inhumane they treated Black people. They don't want that taught. Bureaucrats, and they don't want CRT taught because CRT opens your eyes to how the systems within this country are racist to Black people and people of color. Bureaucrats at the Department of Justice force school districts to undermine girls' sports and parents' rights to satisfy transgender extremists. Remember, I told you yesterday, if their plan is if you are a member of the LGBTQIA community, they want to classify you as sex offenders. They want all of you to register as sex offenders. They don't want discussions in school about gender equality and equity. That's what this is relaying to. Just Ron DeSantis is the right in your face example of these policies. Woke bureaucrats at the Pentagon force troops to attend training seminars about white privilege. They don't want that. They don't want the American people to be taught about white people having privilege, white people being able to not have to be held accountable where Black people and people of color are, where white people are given the leg up, but they'll tell Black people and people of color, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They don't want that. And what do we always say? When they say the word woke, replace that with Black. So I'm going to reread this. Black bureaucrats at the Pentagon force troops to attend training seminars about white privilege. That's more accurate. Bureaucrats at the State Department infuse U.S. foreign aid programs with woke extremism about intersectionality and abortion. Look at Tommy Tuberville. He's holding up some very serious things within the military as far as promotions, policy, carrying out projects that need to be done within the military. He's holding it up because he doesn't want women in the military to be able to get abortions. Here it is right here in the Promise 2025. Bureaucrats at the State Department infuse foreign aid programs with woke extremism about intersectionality and abortion. Unaccountable federal spending is the secret lifeblood of the Great Awakening. Nearly every power center held by the left funded or supported one way or another through the bureaucracy by Congress. Colleges and school districts are funded by tax dollars. The administrative state holds 100% of its power at the sufferance of Congress, and its insulation from presidential discipline is an institutional fairy tale spun by the Washington establishment to protect its turf. Members of Congress shield themselves from constitutional accountability, often when the White House allows them to get away with it. Cultural institutions like public libraries and public health agencies are only as independent from public accountability as elected officials and voters permit. Let's be clear, the most egregious regulations promulgated by the current administration comes from one place, the Oval Office. The president cannot hide behind the agencies, as his many executive orders make clear. His is the responsibility for the regulations that threaten American communities, schools, and families. A conservative president must move swiftly to do away with these vast abuses of presidential power and remove the career and political bureaucrats who fuel it. Properly considered, restoring fiscal limits and constitutional accountability to the federal government is a continuation of restoring national sovereignty to the American people. In foreign affairs, global strategy, federal budgeting, and policymaking, the same pattern emerges again and again. Ruling elites slash and tear at restrictions and accountability placed on them. They centralize power up and away from the American people to supranatural national treaties and organizations, to left-wing experts, to sight unseen all or nothing legislating, to the unelected career bureaucrats of the administrative state. As monolithic as the left's institutional power appears to be, it originates with appropriations from Congress and is made complete by a feckless president. A conservative president must look to the legislative branch for decisive action. The administrative state is not going anywhere until Congress acts to retrieve its own power from bureaucrats and the White House. But in the meantime, there are many executive tools a courageous conservative president can use to handcuff the bureaucracy. push Congress to return to its constitutional responsibility, restore power over Washington to the American people, bring the administrative state to heel, and in the process defang and defund the woke culture warriors who have infiltrated every last institution in America. The woke culture warriors will be Black people and those people who are allies to Black people, those people who want to implement policy to make sure that all Americans are treated equally in this country. The conservative promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats. Remember, I told you they are looking 50,000 federal employees is what they're looking to fire. Okay. And they're saying that some of those 50,000 are deemed unfireable. Well, they've implemented policy so that the next conservative president can fire these people. Okay. How to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices, how to muzzle the woke propaganda at every level of government. Every level of government. That means city, state, county, right on up to federal. So, yeah. How to restore the American people's constitutional authority over the administrative state. The America's people is not Black people, not people of color. And I will go further to say, not white women. America's people is white Christian men. Remember, that's how it was back in 1776. It was white Christian men who had all the power. And how to save untold taxpayer dollars in the process. Finally, the president can restore public confidence and accountability to our most important government function of all, national defense. The American people desire a military full of highly skilled servicemen and women. That's called gaslighting, who can protect the homeland and our interests overseas. The next conservative president must end the left's social experimentation with the military, restore warfighting as its sole mission, and set defeating the threat of the Chinese Communist Party as its highest priority. Not Russia, not the Taliban. No. Just the Chinese Communist Party. The next conservative president must possess the courage to relentlessly put the interests of the everyday American over the desires of the ruling elite. Their outrage cannot be prevented. It must simply be ignored. And it can be. The left derives its power from the institutions they control, but those institutions are only powerful to the extent that constitutional officers surrender their own legitimate authority to them. A president who refuses to do so and uses his or her office to reimpose constitutional authority over federal policy making can begin to correct decades of corruption and remove thousands of bureaucrats from the positions of public trust they have so long abused. So we're not listening to policy. We're not listening to policy. No. Those who are in these different departments who are abiding by the policy set forth, no. If it's not policy that the conservatives and the conservative president agree with, if it's not a part of this handbook, no, we need a president that is strong enough to just ignore these people and what it is that they want. We just need to ignore it, right? Okay, we moving on to promise 3. Promise 3, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. I want to give a shout out to my moderator over here on YouTube, Tracy, and I want to give a shout out to my moderators over here on TikTok. That would be Aisha. I saw Immigration Pro. Shout out. Thank you for keeping the chat nice and clean. So let's get into promise 3. The United States belongs to we the people. I got to say it again. We the people does not include Black people and people of color. We the people is white people. Okay? All government authority derives from the consent of the people, and our nation's success derives from the character of its people. The American people's right to rule ourselves is the obverse of our duty. We cannot outsource to others or our obligation to ensure the conditions that allow our families, local communities, churches, and synagogues. Y'all know they don't like Jewish people. That's gaslighting right there. And neighborhoods to thrive. The buck stops with each of us, so each of us must have the freedom to pursue the good for ourselves and those entrusted to our care. To most Americans, this is common sense, but in Washington, D.C., and other centers of leftist power like the media and the academy, this statement of basic civics is branded hate speech. Progressive elites speak in lofty terms of openness, progress, expertise, cooperation, and globalization. But too often these terms are just rhetorical Trojan horses concealing their true intention, stripping people of our constitutional authority over our country's future. So white people, stripping white people of their constitutional authority over this country's future. America's corporate and political elites do not believe in the ideals to which our nation is dedicated: self-governance, the rule of law, and ordered liberty. They certainly do not trust the American people, and they disdain the Constitution's restrictions on their ambitions. Instead, they believe in a kind of 21st century Wilsonian order in which the enlightened, highly educated managerial elite runs things rather than the humble, patriotic working families who make up the majority of what the elites contemptuously call flyover country. So they want to be able, all of these ignorant people running around on social media, and we talk about how uneducated they are. These are the people that they want to give a say into running this country. They don't want to have to deal with the educated. Why? Because Black women are now known to be the most educated group in this country. They don't want that. They don't want to listen to Black women, right? No, right? And most of the people who are educated in this country are Black and brown people. Why? Because it was drilled in us that to get anywhere in this country, you have to have a level of education, right? I know I heard it in my household. You need to get educated. You need to get educated. You need to at least have a high school diploma. You need to get educated. Educated was drilled into Black and brown people. Why? Because if we didn't have that, we couldn't even get a second glance when it comes to getting a job in this country. See, they deny white privilege, but they benefit from white privilege. They would most definitely be able to get a job with no college degree but have a trade certificate. They will most definitely be able to get a job and they have a GED and no further education. Some of them can even get a job with no GED, no high school diploma. And some of those white men that have just a GED make more than black men who have a full out high school diploma. So they don't like that. They don't like that brown people and people of color, white women are educated because they are looked at first. They are the ones that are taken seriously. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? Okay. Let me see. Where was I? Where was I? Those who run our so-called American corporations have bent to the will of the woke agenda and care more for their foreign investors and organizations than their American workers and customers. Now, it was Republicans who put in this policy that has allowed these corporations to take all of these jobs overseas because they pay less in taxes. Y'all did that. Y'all did that. They don't like the fact that in order to even qualify for a position, you have to have a college degree. That's what a lot of these corporations are doing. They are requiring a college degree for some of these positions and want to pay you minimum wage. Listen, hold on. Let me find out where I was. Today, nearly every top tier US university president or Wall Street hedge fund manager has more in common with the socialist European head of state than with the parents at a high school football game in Waco, Texas. Because those people in Waco, Texas, they're basically saying those people aren't educated. And those people feel disrespected and looked down upon because they can't get what educated people seem to be getting. Okay. Over in Waco, Texas. Many elites' entire identity, it seems, is wrapped up in their sense of superiority over those people. But under our Constitution, they are mere equals of the workers who shower after work instead of before. Now, I could say it's been proven that white people don't shower, but okay. We ain't gonna go there. We ain't gonna be petty. We ain't gonna be petty. But they brought it up. They brought it up. But no, no. See, these white people drilled it in black people's heads. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you too can get that job, and you too can have that fancy car, and you too can live in that beautiful house. You too can get that beautiful wife. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you can have what I have, right? Not admitting that I got what I got off the backs of enslaved black people, from the blood, sweat, and tears of black people. What I am benefiting from is generational wealth, right? Right? It's not superiority. Black people have done what you asked them to do. And now we are refusing to allow you to treat us less than, because we work just as hard, if not harder. In fact, we work harder. And in these days, we're not afraid to tell you that. I'm not afraid to tell a racist white person that's getting down in my comments, spewing lies and misinformation and trying to be racist towards me. I'm not afraid to tell them, bitch, get out of my comment section. I'm better than you. I'm better than you. Yeah, I'm not afraid to tell. a racist ass white person. That shit. I'm not. So they see that as an act of superiority. They also see an act of superiority because um we're at the point now where we are no longer taking their racism. We're no longer doing that. We're calling out their racism. We're calling them exactly what they are: racist, white nationalists, supremacists, because they believe that we are supposed to be beneath them. You ever work with a white person and you go out and you purchase yourself a brand, and the white person will shamelessly ask you, "What did you do to get that car? What did you do to get that car? You bought a house in a wonderful neighborhood, and your white coworker wants to know, what did you do to get your house?" That's because you're not supposed to have those types of things. You're not supposed to have those types of things because they view you as beneath them. They know they have privilege, right? They don't want white people in their suburbs, black people in their suburbs. They want black people out of their suburbs. Black people are supposed to be in the hood and the ghettos. Mhm. So now that we're not, we think we're superior. They'll throw this fake ass term out at you, black privilege. Black privilege? No. I've worked hard. I got an education. I got a good job. I make good money. My credit is good. So yeah, I'm able to do these things. Yeah, I'm using the rules that you put into place. Yeah. Do you have a college degree? No. Child. Okay, let me move on because I could be here forever. This is as it should and must be. Intellectual sophistication, advanced degrees, financial success, and all other markers. They call that elite status. So those of us who are in here who have degrees, we have intellect, we have financial success. I'm not a millionaire. Hell, I'm not even a multi-thousandaire, but I consider myself to be successful financially because yeah, I'm able to save money. I'm not robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I consider myself to be a financial success. I'm living comfortably. I'm not worried about paying bills, even though I'm not a financial success. But they call this markers of elite status. Are you kidding me? Are, are you kidding me? I have to stay on top of my ish. I may be comfortable, but I have to stay on top of my ish because if I don't, if I slip up two, three, too many times, I could be in some serious trouble. But they consider me an elite, not the millionaires and billionaires who are driving this policy. What? JoJo says, I don't feel elite. I don't feel elite. I, what? I am just, I am on my ish. This comfortable feeling, I want to keep it. I want to maintain it. So I am budget down. Budget down. So now let me read this again. If you have intellectual sophistication, that means you know what's going on. Woke, you know what's going on, right? You have a degree, advanced degree, financial success. Those are markers of elite status. Me says new word for uppity. You know how they use this term liberal latte. because we like to go to Starbucks. I don't go to Starbucks, but y'all know I go to Dunkin' Donuts to get the butter pecan, my favorite, my favorite. But that's what they call these people, liberal lattes. Where was I? Where was I? Where was I? Where was I? Where is okay? This is as it should and must be. Intellectual sophistication, degrees, advanced degrees, financial success, and all other markers of elite status have no bearing on a person's knowledge of the one thing most necessary for governance, what it means to live well. Listen, these are the people. These people who are writing this out, these are the people that listened to Donald Trump during the pandemic instead of Dr. Fauci. You get it now? This is why they don't want to listen. They didn't want to listen to Dr. Fauci because they felt a dodo like Donald Trump was intellectually equal to Dr. Fauci. All of the people out there with no degrees who are trying to tell us how to survive COVID, trying to tell us that COVID was just a common cold. This is what this stems from. They're trying to tell us these people know as much as the scientists who studied and educated themselves. And this is what they want to turn society into. We're going to be listening to the likes of people like Donald Trump for medical advice. Right, Lily? You got people that I don't even understand where this whole borax thing is coming. You have people ingesting borax. I use borax to whiten my whites. I used borax. I used borax one time when I had a problem with ants, and I used borax to create this recipe. And the ants would ingest it, take it back to their nest, and yeah, it would cause a problem amongst the nest. It didn't work, but people now have some theory about borax curing something, or these are the people that they are saying are equal to your medical doctor, to your surgeon, to your oncologist. These are the people that are equal to them. What? That knowledge is available to each of us, no matter how humble our backgrounds or how unpretentious our attainments. It is open to us to read in the book of human nature. One of the great premises of American political life is that everyone can read in that book, must have a voice in deciding the course and fate of our republic. So you telling me that a person with no high school diploma should sit on the team that decides what's best for me medically? They must have a say. What? Come on now. Progressive policymakers and pundits in America either fail to understand this premise or unintentionally or intentionally reject it. They enthusiastically support supranational organizations like the United Nations and the European Union, which are run and staffed almost entirely by people who share their values and are mostly insulated from the influence of national elections. So you telling me y'all have a problem with national elections? Remember I told y'all yesterday, if Donald Trump gets back into office, that will be the last presidential election that we have. Remember I told y'all that? So now they're telling us that they have a problem with people within the federal government talking to people of the United Nations and the European Union because they are mostly insulated from the influence of national elections. Okay. That's why they are eager for America to sign international treaties on everything from pharmaceutical patents to climate change to the rights of a child, and why those treaties invariably endorse policies that could never pass through the US Congress, like the progressive Woodrow Wilson a century ago. The woke left seeks a world bound by global treaties they write, in which they exercise dictatorial powers over all nations without being subject to democratic accountability. That's why today's progressive left so cavalierly supports open borders. Despite the lawless humanitarian crisis their policy created along America's southern border, they seek to purge the very concept of the nation state from the American ethos. No matter how much crime increases or resources drop, for schools and hospitals, or wages decrease for the working class. Open borders activism is a classic example of what the German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer called cheap grace, publicly promoting one's own virtue without risking any personal inconvenience. Indeed, the only direct impact of open borders on pro-open borders elites is that the constant flow of illegal immigration suppresses the wages of their housekeepers, landscapers, and busboys. That don't even make sense to me. This don't even make sense to me. First of all, German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I'm wondering if he was a Nazi. I'm wondering if he was a Nazi. The constant flow of illegal immigration suppresses the wages of their housekeepers, landscapers, and busboys. So bringing in illegal immigrants, this is the illegal immigrants are taking my jobs, or because of the illegal immigrants, I'm not making as much money as I should be. Argument. That's what I'm taking from this. All of the immigrants that left the state of Florida, y'all didn't jump up to go get those jobs. White people, y'all didn't jump to go get those jobs. There's housing projects that are sitting down there dormant, that's being ruined. There's food, produce spoiling in the fields. Ron DeSantis followed this playbook, got rid of all of the immigrants in the state of Florida, and the white people didn't step up. The white people who was complaining, they haven't stepped up to take those jobs. Okay. All right. Let me find where I am. At its very heart, environmental extremism is decidedly anti-human. Stewardship and conservation are supplanted by population control and economic regression. Environmental ideologues would ban the fuels that run almost all of the world's cars, planes, factories, farms, and electricity grids, abandoning confidence in human resilience and creativity in responding to the challenges of the future would raise impediments to the most meaningful human activities. They would stand human affairs on their head regarding human activity, itself as fundamentally a threat to the sacrifice to the God of nature. What? I can't even break this down. I'm sure this is in relation to climate change. The same goals are the heart of elite support for economic globalization. For 30 years, America's political, economic, and cultural leaders embraced and enriched communist China and its genocidal Communist Party while hollowing out America's industrial base. What may have started with good intentions has now been made clear. Unfettered trade with China has been a catastrophe. It has made a handful of American corporations enormously profitable while twisting their business incentives away from the American people's needs. Now, I agree with that. I agree with that. For a generation, politicians of both parties promised that engagement with Beijing would grow our economy while injecting American values into China. The opposite has happened. I agree with that. American factories have closed, jobs have been outsourced, our manufacturing economy has been financed, and all along the corporations profiting failed to export our values of human rights and freedoms. Rather, they imported China's anti-American values into their C-suites. I don't agree with that. I don't. Even before the rise of big tech, Wall Street ignored China's serial theft of American intellectual property. It outright cheered the elimination of American factory jobs, manufacturing jobs. Learn to code, they would gloat. These were just the price of progress. Engagement was at every step Beijing's project, not America's. The Chinese Communist Party dictated terms only to break them whenever it suited them. I agree. They stole our technology, spied on our people, and threatened our allies, all with trillions of dollars of wealth and military power financed by their access to our market. Hmm, that's weird. Then came the rise of big tech, which is now less a contributor to the US economy than it is a tool of China's government. In exchange for cheap labor and regulatory special treatment from Beijing, America's largest technology firms funnel data about Americans to the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. They hand over sensitive intellectual property with military and intelligence applications to keep the money rolling in. They let Beijing censor Chinese users on their platforms. They do. They let the CCP set their corporate policies about mobile apps, and they run interference for our rivals' political priorities in Washington. One side of big tech companies' business model is old-fashioned American competitiveness and world-changing technological innovation, but increasingly that side of these businesses is overshadowed by the role as operatives in the lucrative employ of America's most dangerous international enemy. If you want to understand the danger posed, okay, I think we're getting into the whole TikTok thing. If you want to understand the danger posed by collaboration between big tech and the CCP, look no further than TikTok, the highly addictive video app used by 80 million Americans every month and overwhelmingly popular among teenage girls, is in effect a tool of Chinese espionage. The ties between TikTok and the Chinese government are not loose and they are not coincidental. The same can be observed of many US colleges and universities. Through the CCP Confucius Institutes, Beijing has been just as successful at compromising and co-opting our higher education system as they have at compromising and co-opting corporate America. A casual reader might take the last few pages as surveying a broad array of challenges facing the American people and the next conservative president. Supranational policy making, border security, globalization, engagement with China, manufacturing, big tech, and Beijing compromised colleges. But these really are not many issues, but two. One, that China is a totalitarian enemy of the United States, not a strategic partner or fair competitor. And two, that America's elites have betrayed the American people. The solution to all of the above problems is not to tinker with this or that government program, to replace this or that bureaucrat. These are problems not of technocratic efficiency, but of national sovereignty and constitutional governance. We solve them by not by trimming and reshaping the leaves, but by ripping out the tree's root and branch. Mm. International organizations and agreements that erode our Constitution, rule of law, or popular sovereignty should not be reformed. They should be abandoned. Illegal immigration should be ended, not mitigated. The border sealed, not reprioritized. Economic engagement with China should be ended, not rethought. Our manufacturing and industrial base should be restored, not allowed to deteriorate further. Confucius Institutes, TikTok, and any other arm of Chinese propaganda and espionage should be outlawed, not merely monitored. Universities taking money from the CCP should lose their accreditation. Charters and eligibility for federal funds. Mm. The next conservative president should go beyond merely defending America's energy interests, but go on offense, asserting them around the world. America's vast reserves of oil and natural gas are not an environmental problem. They are the lifeblood of economic growth. American dominance of the global energy market would be a good thing for the world and, more importantly, for we, the people. It's not just about jobs, even though unleashing domestic energy production would create millions of them. It's not just about higher wages for workers who didn't go to college, though they would receive the raises they have missed out on for 2 generations. Full spectrum strategic energy dominance would facilitate the reinvigoration of America's entire industrial and manufacturing sector as we disentangle our economy from China. Globally, it would rebalance power away from dangerous regimes in Russia and the Middle East. It would build powerful alliances with fast growing nations in Africa and provide us the leverage to counter Chinese ambitions in South America and the Pacific. Locally, it would drive billions of dollars of private investment to the communities that have been hammered by globalization since the 90s. And it will clarify our intentions to Beijing that the next president can ensure that a large part of America's reindustrialization is in the production of the equipment we will need to dissuade future foreign meddling with U.S. vital interests. This is very interesting. I'm going to have to study this this part of Promise 3 more, because some of it I agree with. Some of it I don't agree with. Some of it I know where it's standing from. Hmm. I don't view China as an ally to the United States. I don't. And I don't view Russia as an ally to the United States. So, yeah, I need to understand what they are saying fully. The only part that I understand what they are saying fully is that they want to, of course, bring back industrial and manufacturing to the United States. And they want to do that because they want to be able to employ the men who haven't been able to see success since they left the United States. If y'all get what I'm saying. They haven't been able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I don't know. Go to school and learn a trade. Learn about solar energy. They haven't been able to do that. They themselves, who were a part of the coal industry, for instance, the automobile industry, for instance, they have not been able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps to further educate themselves so that they can become successful in another market. So what they are doing, sounds like, is they want to bring all of these industries back to the United States so these men can feel like men, or so that these men can make money. Some of this I agree with. Some of this I don't. Where it's all stemming from, yeah, I only picked up on that portion of it. We're heading on to Promise 4. And then there's like an end summary. Promise 4, secure our God-given individual right to enjoy the blessings of liberty. The Declaration of Independence famously asserted the belief of America's founders that all men are created equal. Let's be clear. The Declaration of Independence, when it made that statement, it was not talking about Black people and people of color. Okay? Okay. Well, let's see. Where am I? The Declaration of Independence famously asserted the belief of America's founders that all men are created equal and endowed with God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the pursuit of happiness, that is central to America's heroic experiment in self-government. When the founders spoke of pursuit of happiness, what they meant might be understood today as, in an essence, pursuit of blessedness. Okay, y'all, let's put on our blessed be the fruit, our outfits with our hats, our suits. Okay. When the founders spoke of pursuit of happiness, what they meant might be understood today as, in essence, pure pursuit of blessedness. That is, an individual must be free to live as his creator ordained to flourish. Our Constitution grants each of us the liberty to do not what we want, but what we ought. This pursuit of the good life is found primarily in family, marriage, children, Thanksgiving dinners, and the like. Many find happiness through their work. Think of dedicated teachers or healthcare professionals, entrepreneurs or plumbers throwing themselves in their businesses. Anyone who sees the job well done as a personal reward. Religious devotion and spirituality are the greatest sources of happiness around the world. Still others find themselves happiest in their local, voluntary communities of friends, their neighbors, their civic or charitable work. The American Republic was founded on principles prioritizing and maximizing individuals' rights to live their best life or to enjoy what the framers called the blessings of liberty. It's that radical equality, liberty for all, not just of rights, but of authority that the rich and powerful have hated about democracy in America since 1776. Remember these clue words, 1776. They resent Americans' audacity in insisting that we don't need them to tell us how to live. Meanwhile, these Christians are trying to tell everybody how to live, right? Okay. It's that inalienable right of self-direction, of each person's opportunity to direct himself or herself and his or her community to the good that the ruling class disdains. With the Declaration and Constitution, our nation's founders handed to us the means with which to preserve this right. Abraham Lincoln wrote on the Declaration as an apple of gold in a silver frame, the Constitution. So much the next conservative president looked to these documents when the elites mount their next assault on liberty. Left to our own devices, the American people rejected European monarchy and colonialism just as we rejected slavery. Did they not go to war because they wanted to maintain slavery? Did they not go to war because they wanted to maintain slavery? This is the lies that they tell their followers. Exactly, Rage Page, rewriting history. This is what they're telling their people. So let's keep going so I can get to work. Where was I? We rejected slavery, second class citizenship for women. What? Mercantilism, socialism, Wilsonian globalism, fascism, communism, and today wokeism. To the left, these assertions of patriotic self assurance are just so many signs of our moral depravity and intellectual inferiority, proof that, in fact, we need a ruling elite making decisions for us. They're saying the quiet parts out loud. But the next conservative president should be proud, not ashamed of Americans' unique culture of social equality and ordered liberty. After all, the countries where Marxist elite have won political and economic power are all weaker, poorer, and less free for it. The United States remains the most innovative and upwardly mobile society in the world. Government should stop trying to substitute its own preferences for those of the people, and the next conservative president should champion the dynamic genius of free enterprise against the grim miseries of elite directed socialism. The promise of socialism, communism, Marxism, progressivism, fascism, whatever name it chooses, is simple. Government control of the economy can ensure equal outcomes for all people. The problem is that it has never done so. There is no such thing as the government. There are just people who work for the government and wield its power and who, at almost every opportunity, wield it to them to serve themselves first and everyone else a distant second. This is not a failing of one nation or socialist party, but inherent in human nature. Nighttime satellite images of the Korean Peninsula famously show the free market South lit up with homes, businesses, and cities electrified from coast to coast. By contrast, communist North Korea is almost completely dark, except for the small dot of the capital city, Pyongyang, where a psychotic dictator and his cronies live. The same phenomenon is on display in the infuriating fact that 4 of the 6 richest counties in the United States are suburbs of Washington, D.C., a city infamous for its lack of native productive industries. We see the same corruption expressed on an individual level whenever billionaire climate activists who want to outlaw carbon fueled transportation fly to an A-list conference on their private jet, or when COVID-19 shut down politicians like former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and California Governor Gavin Newsom were caught at the hair salon or dining at fancy restaurants after moralizing about how everyone else must stay home and forego such luxuries during the pandemic. For socialists who are almost always well-to-do, socialism is not a means of equalizing outcomes, but a means of accumulating power. They never get around to helping anyone else. The Soviet Empire was a social and economic failure. North Korea, despite the opulence of its tyrants, is one of the poorest nations in the world. Cuba is so corrupt that its people regularly risk their lives to escape to Florida on rafts. Venezuela was once the richest nation in South America. Today, a decade after a Marxist dictator took over, 94% of Venezuelans live in poverty. Even Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders' home state of Vermont was forced to repeal the state's single-payer health care system just 3 years after creating it. In every case, social elites promised that if only they could direct the economy, everything would be better. Very quickly, everything got worse. But we don't have a socialist economy. In socialist nation after socialist nation, the only way the government could keep its disgruntled people in line was to surveil and terrorize them. By contrast, in countries with a high degree of economic freedom, elites are not in charge because everyone is in charge. People work, build, invest, save, and create according to their own interests and in service to the common good of their fellow citizens. There is a reason why the private economy hews to the maxim, the customer is always right. While government bureaucracies are notoriously user-friendly, just as there is a reason why private charities are cheerful and government welfare systems are not, it's not because grocery store clerks and PTA moms are good and federal bureaucracies are bad. It's because private enterprises, for profit or nonprofit, must cooperate to succeed. So, as the American people take back their sovereignty, constitutional authority, respect for their families and communities, they should also take back their right to pursue the good life. The next president should promote pro-growth economic policies that spur new jobs and investment, higher wages and productivity. Yet that agenda should include overdue tax and regulatory reform, but it should go further and include antitrust enforcement against corporate monopolies. It should promote educational opportunities outside the work-dominated system of public schools and universities, including trade schools, apprenticeships, and student loan alternatives that fund students' dreams instead of Marxist academics. Just as important as expanding opportunities for workers and small businesses, the next president should crack down on the crony capitalist corruption that enables America's largest corporations to profit through political influence rather than competitive enterprise and customer satisfaction. Now, listen, And when it comes to dealing with capitalism, I agree with that. I agree with that. The capital, I agree with that. I agree with that. But if they are looking for Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy, they are a part of the capitalist corruption, aren't they? We are the elite. So why would you want a participant of capitalism to become president? Am I asking too many questions? Why would you want a person that benefits greatly from capitalism to be president? Why would you think he would do anything to get rid of capitalism? Philistine says, I missed something. I got some questions. I got some questions. To become a billionaire, listen, to become a billionaire, you can't earn $1 billion. To become a billionaire, you have exploited working class citizens. To be a $1 billion company, you have to exploit the middle class and the poor to get to that status. Which means you have used capitalism to your advantage. Donald Trump is a billionaire. Well, so they say. So why do you want him? Okay. It's just not making sense. Let's move on. Analogs pro-growth reforms for America's voluntary civil society are also in order. America is not an economy. It is a country. But don't the people that follow these people say that America is a business? Don't they continuously produce some type of corporation documents that are the United States of America, and they think that the United States of America is a business? Haven't you seen those conspiracy theories? Those QAnon people produce these documents. These are your people, Heritage Foundation. I'm confused. I'm confused. I'm confused. America is not an economy, it is a country. Economic freedom is not the only important freedom. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and the freedom to assemble also represent key components of the American promise. Today, in addition to the problem of big tech censorship, we see speakers at universities shouted down, parents investigated and arrested for attempting to speak at school board meetings, and donors to conservative causes harassed and intimidated. The next conservative president must defend our First Amendment rights. Baby, this is about them. This is about them, their freedom to try to impose their religion on everyone else, their freedom to only talk about their history and remove everybody else's history from the school curriculum. Their people being able to spew lies and misinformation at school board meetings, and no one holding them accountable or following up with what the truth is. They want to be able to do what it is that they want to do, and what they want to do needs to be imposed on the rest of us. Mm, okay. Their First Amendment rights. Because, yeah, we elites, the woke people, the black people, the people of color, yeah. Mm-mm. Okay. That's the end of Promise 4. So we're going into this little wrap up and then we're done. Ultimately, the left does not believe that all men are created equal. They think they are special. They certainly don't think all people have an unalienable right to pursue the good life. This is gaslighting. This is gaslighting. This is lies. This is misinformation. They think only they themselves have such a right, along with a moral responsibility, to make decisions for everyone else. I don't see people on the left implementing laws to keep people from being who they are. I don't see people on the left creating laws to stop talking about or teaching their history. I don't see people on the left telling people on the right that they are going to hell because they aren't following what's in their book. I see people on the right doing that. Martine says, as I've said for the last few years, Black women are going to save this country because no one knows the ravages of our system better than them. Let me continue on. Mm. They don't think any citizen, state, business, church, or charity should be allowed any freedom until they first bend the knee. This book, this agenda, the entire Project 2025 is a plan to unite the conservative movement and the American people against elite rule and woke culture warriors. That's us. Those of us with degrees and intellectual, we got some level of intellectual mind going on. That's us, right? Especially the woke culture. That's us. That's Black people specifically. That's Black people. Okay. Our movement has not been united in recent years, and our country has paid the price. In the past decade, though, the breakdown of the family, the rise of China, the great awakening, big tech's abuses, and the erosion of constitutional accountability in Washington have rendered these divisions not just inconvenient, but politically suicidal. Every hour, the left directs federal policy and elite institutions. Our sovereignty, our constitution, our families, and our freedom are a step closer to disappearing. That's white people. That's white people disappearing, period. That's code for white people disappearing. Conservatives have just 2 years and one shot to get this right. With enemies at home and abroad, there is no margin for error. Time is running short. If we fail, the fight for the very idea of America may be lost. But we should take this small window of opportunity we have left to act with courage and confidence and not despair. The last time our nation and movement were so near defeat, we rallied together behind a great leader and great ideas, transcended our differences, rescued our nation, and changed the world. It's time to do it again. Now, as then, we know who we are fighting and what we are fighting for our republic, for our freedom, and for each other. Listen, they want the freedom to treat Black people and people of color as secondary citizens. They want the freedom to be hateful and racist to anybody they deem necessary. They want the freedom to not hire people, to fire people based on color, religion, sexual orientation. That's what they want. They want to be on top, and they want everybody else to be beneath them. That's what they want. White men at the top, white women, everybody else at the bottom. That's what they want. Point blank, period. They want Black people to have no say in what goes on in this country. They don't want Black people to be able to live above them in any way, shape, or form. Period. They don't want immigrants in this country, even though this country is supposed to be founded on that. They want this country to remain a white man patriarchy. That's what they want. Why won't this go away? It won't go away. I can't see what y'all saying over on TikTok. Let me continue on. The next conservative president will enter office on January 20th, 2025, with a simple choice: greatness or failure. It will be a daunting test, but no more so than every generation of Americans has faced and passed. The conservative promise represents the best effort of the conservative movement in 2023, and the next conservative president's last opportunity to save our republic. That's the promise. Now, the rest of the book, as I said, you can anything that made your senses arise. There was a couple of things that made my senses arise, and I want to go back into the back of the book, look for that section, and see what policies are they talking about putting in place. I want to see what they have to say in regards to immigration. I specifically want to see what they have to say in regards to LGBT, the policies that they plan on, they want to implement in regards to LGBTQ, the family, because they repeatedly talked about the family, and the family consists of man, woman, children, and white. Okay, so I need to see what they have to say about that. They talked about single motherhood. Why are you bringing up single motherhood? What's your plan for single mothers? So yeah, if you want a link to the book is free. You can find it out there on Google, but you got to go through articles and all of that to try to get to it. If you go to the Linktree link in my bio for over on YouTube, when this video processes, I'll put the link in my Linktree link in the description box. Just go to that and you'll see a link where it says the Conservative Project 2025, the Conservative Promise. Click on that, and then it'll take you to my threads where you'll see the post. You click on that post and it'll bring up the book. It's 900 pages, but the meat of it is of what the gist, or what it is that they are talking about as far as the things that they want to implement, and why is what I just read, the conservative promise. It's all based on this promise. Everything in the back is geared towards promise number 1, promise number 2, promise number 3, promise number 4. You get what I'm saying? So if I read something in promise number 3, go to that section in the table of contents and look for what it is that you want more information on, and go to that section and see what it is that they are planning to implement policy-wise regarding that. That's the best way to look at, or you can read the whole 900 and something odd pages. Okay, this is scary. As I started this little series, if you have not watched The Handmaid's Tale or Tale, that's what this is all about. This is about creating a dystopian society. The people at the top will be the elites. These people will be the elites. Right now they consider us the elites because we're educated and we've got good jobs and we've got good credit and we are intellectual. We are educated and we follow their rules, right? Black people, people of color, we followed their rules. We pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. We got here. They're still stuck in coal mining jobs where coal mining doesn't exist anymore. They can't seem to get a piece of this American pie. And we did all this even with their boots on our necks, right? We've educated ourselves. We see their racism and their hatred. We see the roadblocks that they put into place for us, and we've called it out. And so now that a lot of us have seen the things that they have done, which have made them wealthy, and now we see that these policies are a problem, and we're running for office and we're looking to change these policies. Now, Project 2025 is here. The conservative movement is here. Although it's been a part of society all these, it upgrades whenever they feel they're losing control. And right now, the fear that's driving this is 2040, 2050, white people will be the minority. Which is why they're implementing these rights to take your rights away. But they're at the same time, on the other side of their mouth, they're telling you that we need to get back to living free. Well, we know what living free means for them. Living free means for them, all for me, none for ye. And you can't say or do anything about it. You're beneath us. You will remain beneath us. All of the riches and the happiness, that's meant for us, white people. That's meant for us, not for you. Not for you. You're second-class citizens. You are our maids. You are our butlers. You are our carpenters. You are our plumbers. Yeah, and whatever you're getting, money-wise, yeah, we need to get a piece of that. That's what this is all about. 2025, 2024, I cannot stress enough. Get in that voting booth and vote blue, period. If not, if Donald Trump gets back into office, if any Republican gets into the presidency, this will be real. Especially Ron DeSantis. He's already implemented this in Florida. A lot of what we talked about, he's already implemented in Florida. And Republicans are standing by on ready in other states. If you notice, if Ron DeSantis does something in Florida, other Republican states move to implement it in their states. Right? He made PragerU curriculum a thing down in Florida. Now it's out there in Arizona and it's out there in Oklahoma. He signed a 6-week ban. They're trying to fight it in other Republican states. It's not going over so well in other Republican states. But if you notice, any Republican governor in any Republican state, if they implement some nonsense regarding this handbook, other Republicans are moving to implement it. Some of what we talked about, we've heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz. We've heard from them. So it is clear to me that they are already trying to implement this. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for being a part of it. I appreciate y'all. I got to get to work now. Don't stop applying pressure. Don't stop educating yourselves. Don't stop calling out the hate and the racism. Don't stop doing it. And in 2024, please get yourself, people around you into that voting booth and vote blue up and down the ticket. Up and down the ticket. Up and down the ticket. Not just on the federal level. Up and down the ticket. Vote blue. Vote blue. Democracy depends on it. Where we are as a country, if we want to get better, that depends on it. This election is imperative. Imperative. And don't let people tell you both parties are the same. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. One of my mutuals said, if somebody comes up to you or somebody you're commenting out there on social media and somebody says to you, both parties are the same, that is a person that supports Trump and they're doing whatever they can to try to validate it. Don't let them tell you both parties are the same, because they're not. One party is clearly taking away rights, whereas one party is trying to hold on to rights. You are not as free as you were before Donald Trump came into the White House. You are not. You're not even free, women, to decide what's best for your own body should you get pregnant. On that note, I gotta go. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for the gifts. Thank you for the hearts. Thank y'all for the super chats. Thank y'all. I'll see y'all in the next one. Y'all have a fantastic Friday. It's a rainy one here. So yeah, I guess I'll be in. See y'all later. 1